When a nation feels its very survival is at stake, hesitation is no option. Israel has just taken bold action to secure its national safety and protect its future. But what does this mean for the region, for its people, and for the world? Let's uncover the full story. Hello everyone, welcome back to the channel. Today, we're diving into one of the most pressing and debated events in the Middle East. Israel has taken bold action in the name of national safety and security, sparking headlines and debates worldwide. This is not just another operation, it's a moment that could reshape the strategic balance in the region. For Israel, national security has always been more than just a policy, it's an existential necessity. Surrounded by complex challenges, the nation has consistently prioritized defense and deterrence as the foundation of its survival. This latest move reflects that long-standing philosophy: when danger grows, action follows. But here's the question we must ask: is this bold action a calculated strategy to secure peace through strength? Or is it a dangerous gamble that risks igniting larger conflicts? Supporters call it a responsible step, a message that Israel will not tolerate threats. Critics, however, warn of escalation, humanitarian fallout, and regional instability. Throughout this video, we'll explore the layers of this story, the context that pushed Israel to act, the nature of the operation, domestic reactions, regional responses, international opinions, and the broader implications for security and diplomacy. By the end, you'll see why this decision matters not just to Israel, but to the entire world. Let's begin with the context that shaped this action. No bold action happens in a vacuum. For Israel, the decision to strike was influenced by years of rising threats and intelligence suggesting that danger was closing in. From rocket fire along its borders to underground networks of hostile groups, Israel has faced a constant challenge to maintain security. Each threat may seem isolated, but together they form a web of risks that, if left unchecked, could overwhelm the nation's defenses. Israeli intelligence reportedly indicated that certain hostile elements were preparing to escalate, possibly targeting civilians or critical infrastructure. In such a scenario, waiting would not reduce the risk. It would only increase the cost of inaction. Leaders argued that decisive action was the only way to prevent a larger catastrophe. Beyond immediate threats, Israel also faced a shifting geopolitical landscape, with alliances in flux, tensions in Gaza and Lebanon, and global debates over the Middle East intensifying. Israel's leaders felt pressure to demonstrate strength. In their view, failing to act boldly could embolden adversaries and weaken deterrence. This context paints a picture of urgency. Israel's leaders didn't frame this as a choice, but as a necessity: strike now or risk far greater damage later. But what exactly did this action involve? Let's break down the nature of the operation itself. Although some details remain classified, reports suggest Israel carried out a precise, coordinated strike against targets deemed critical to national security. These were not random attacks, but carefully chosen sites believed to house weapons, command centers, or intelligence operations that posed immediate danger. The operation combined Israel's technological edge with its military discipline. Fighter jets, surveillance drones, and advanced cyber capabilities were deployed in sync. This was more than a military strike. It was a demonstration of Israel's ability to integrate modern warfare tools seamlessly. Observers noted the speed, accuracy, and efficiency of the action, qualities that Israel has long cultivated to maintain a deterrent advantage. What makes this operation significant is not just the physical damage inflicted, but the psychological message sent. Israel is willing and able to strike preemptively if its security is threatened. This message resonates across borders, reminding both adversaries and allies that Israel's red lines are firm. Of course, every strike carries consequences. Civilian populations in the affected areas expressed fear and anger, while Israel insisted its targets were strictly military. This tension between tactical precision and human cost remains at the heart of the debate. Still, Israel framed the operation as proof that it will take bold, decisive measures to ensure survival. Let's hear how the government officially justified the move. Soon after the operation, Israel's government released a firm statement to the public and the world. Prime Minister Netanyahu, joined by senior defense officials, declared that the action was necessary to safeguard the lives of Israeli citizens. Our first duty is to protect our people, the statement read. We will not wait for danger to strike us. We will act first to neutralize any threat. The government portrayed the move as both defensive and preemptive. It emphasized that intelligence pointed to an imminent threat and failure to act could have cost lives. By highlighting the urgency, leaders framed their decision not as aggression, but as responsibility. Israel also made sure its message reached beyond its borders. By going public, the government sought to send a clear signal to adversaries' provocations will not be tolerated. At the same time, officials reassured allies that Israel's actions were calculated, not reckless, and rooted in the principle of protecting civilians. Still, the tone was unmistakably bold. Words like decisive, necessary, and non-negotiable dominated the address. This was not a plea for understanding, but a declaration of strength. The government wanted to ensure both citizens and enemies knew one thing: Israel will always act boldly in defense of its survival. But how did ordinary Israelis react to this dramatic move? Within Israel, the operation sparked a wave of emotions. For many citizens, it was a moment of reassurance. Families living near border regions, long accustomed to sirens and uncertainty, expressed relief that their government was taking decisive steps to protect them. Social media was filled with messages of support, with hashtags celebrating the strength of the Israeli Defense Forces trending nationwide. For these supporters, the operation symbolized a government finally taking action rather than waiting to react. They saw it as proof that their leaders valued their safety above international criticism. In their eyes, boldness was not a choice, it was survival. But there were also voices of caution. Critics inside Israel worried that the action could provoke retaliation, putting civilians at even greater risk in the long term. Some questioned whether the intelligence justifying the strike was strong enough. Civil society groups urged the government to balance security needs with humanitarian concerns. Despite the debate, the overall sentiment leaned toward pride. The majority of Israelis living in a nation surrounded by complex threats felt that strength was the only language adversaries understood. For them, this operation was a reminder that Israel is not passive, it is proactive. Still, reactions outside Israel painted a very different picture. The Middle East reacted quickly. Some neighboring countries condemned the strike, accusing Israel of destabilizing the region. Leaders in Lebanon, Syria, and Gaza-aligned factions framed the operation as aggression, warning that it would not go unanswered. Statements from these groups emphasized resistance, and calls for retaliation grew louder. At the same time, other regional actors adopted a more cautious approach. Several Gulf states, while not openly supportive of Israel, refrained from strong condemnation. Analysts noted that these governments were quietly calculating the implications, balancing public opinion against their own security concerns. The silence of some leaders spoke volumes about shifting dynamics in the region. Iran, a longtime adversary of Israel, denounced the action in strong terms, calling it a violation of international norms. Yet behind the rhetoric, experts observed hesitation. Israel's show of precision and strength served as a reminder of its capabilities, a factor that adversaries had to weigh carefully before escalating. The broader regional response highlighted a key reality: Israel's bold actions don't just affect its own borders, they ripple across the entire Middle East. Every move recalibrates alliances, fuels debates, and tests the resolve of neighbors. While some vowed retaliation, others watched quietly, wary of being drawn into a wider conflict. But how did the world beyond the region respond? Internationally, Israel's action triggered sharp divisions. The United States, Israel's closest ally, voiced strong support. American officials reiterated that Israel has the right to defend itself, praising the precision of the strike and calling it an example of responsible use of force. Several European nations echoed similar sentiments, framing the operation as a legitimate response to looming threats. On the other hand, human rights groups and some international organizations expressed concern. They questioned whether the strike truly avoided civilian harm and warned that bold actions could escalate into broader wars. The United Nations issued a cautious statement urging restraint and calling for dialogue to prevent further violence. Global media outlets amplified these divisions. Some headlines celebrated Israel's decisiveness, portraying the action as a model of preemptive defense. Others described it as reckless, warning that it could inflame tensions across an already volatile region. The debate spilled over into international forums, where diplomats sparred over the fine line between defense and aggression. The reactions underscored Israel's unique position in global politics, praised by allies, condemned by rivals, and scrutinized by neutral observers. Each response reflected deeper geopolitical alignments, reminding us that Israel's every move is not just a national act, but a global event. With the world's eyes fixed, what strategic implications does this action hold? Beyond the immediate headlines, Israel's bold action carries weighty long-term implications. First and foremost, it reinforces Israel's position as a regional military power. By demonstrating its willingness to strike decisively, Israel strengthens deterrence, sending a message that threats will not be tolerated. This deterrence is not just about one enemy, but about all potential adversaries. If rivals believe Israel will act boldly at the first sign of danger, they may think twice before provoking. In this sense, the strike could prevent greater conflicts down the line. At the same time, boldness brings risks. Israel now faces heightened expectations. Having shown strength, it must maintain credibility. Any future hesitation could be seen as weakness, emboldening enemies. This creates pressure on leaders to consistently act with the same level of decisiveness. Strategically, the move also reshapes alliances. Some nations may quietly align closer to Israel, valuing its power as a counterbalance in the region. Others may distance themselves, fearing association with bold, controversial actions. Either way, the Middle East's balance of power has been adjusted. Ultimately, Israel's decision was more than a strike. It was a message about survival, strength, and deterrence. But as with all strategies, boldness can backfire. Let's explore the risks and challenges Israel faces moving forward. Every bold action carries risks, and Israel's latest move is no exception. The most immediate danger lies in retaliation. Adversaries may seek to respond with rocket fire, cyber attacks, or other asymmetric tactics. Even a small-scale counterstrike could endanger civilians and reignite cycles of violence. Diplomatic isolation is another challenge. While allies like the United States may stand firm, other nations could push back through international bodies, framing Israel's actions as disproportionate. This could lead to new resolutions, sanctions, or reputational costs on the world stage. Internally, maintaining unity will also be a test. While many citizens feel safer, others fear escalation. If retaliation occurs, public support could shift, placing pressure on leadership. The government must balance bold defense with clear communication to keep the nation united. Additionally, Israel risks overextension. A strategy of constant boldness requires immense resources, military, financial, and political. If adversaries provoke repeatedly, can Israel sustain the same level of response without straining its capabilities? The greatest challenge, however, is the unpredictability of conflict. One miscalculation, one unintended consequence could spark a chain reaction beyond Israel's control. This is the thin line between deterrence and escalation. With risks high, what does this mean for the future of Israel and the region? Let's conclude with the broader perspective. In the end, Israel's bold action is more than just a military maneuver. It's a statement of national identity. For decades, Israel has lived with the reality that security is not guaranteed, but earned through strength and vigilance. This latest move underscores that philosophy: hesitation is weakness, boldness is survival. Supporters will argue that Israel acted responsibly, protecting its people before danger could strike. Critics will counter that such boldness risks inflaming tensions and making peace even harder to achieve. Both perspectives hold weight, and the truth may lie somewhere in between. What is certain is that Israel's action has reshaped conversations about security, deterrence, and diplomacy. It has reminded the world that in a region defined by uncertainty, nations sometimes choose boldness over caution. Whether this brings stability or sparks further conflict will depend on how adversaries, allies, and Israel itself respond in the days ahead. For ordinary people inside Israel, across the Middle East, and around the world, this decision is not abstract. It touches on their safety, their future, and their hope for peace. So, what do you think? Was Israel justified in its bold action for national safety, or has it stepped onto a path of greater danger? Share your thoughts in the comments below, and don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit the bell for more deep dives into global events.